Oh, if you guys could see the setup that I have right now, this, quite literally, every single move that I make is a flight risk. Inspiration struck, hopped out of the shower because I was at the gym and I was just like, I'm gonna film a book rec video. Even though it's dead dark outside, it looks like the streets of Toronto are on fire right now, but it's not. I made a book rec video about this very trope actually years ago. And this is low-key my favorite trope of all time. It doesn't matter to me what the actual romance trope is, the setting, genre, character, plot, whatever. If it is a slow burn romance, automatic 5 stars. Like I said, I made a book rec video like this a while back. So if you guys have seen that book rec video and I repeat some of the books, no, I didn't. The first subgroup of books I'm gonna talk about, I hope that the algorithm does its thing and this reaches the right demographic of people, but it's books to read after the Foxhole Court. If you've been here, you know the vibes. The best book series of all time. If you read it, I'm so sorry. The name of the game for this specific flavor of slow burn, it's like very suppressed, protective, borderline possessive, slow burn romance between two boys who are in a river in Egypt. If you read the Foxhole Court, then you know what I'm talking about. It's giving an Andrew and Neil kind of romance. So if you need to fill that void in your heart, these are the 3 books that I would recommend in this order. Okay guys, sorry, this is a bit random, but because I know I'm gonna get questions about this, because I always get questions, I'm gonna tell you guys where the sweaters you guys always ask about is from. This like fuller fleece one and the beige hoodie that everyone always asks about. Really my favorite hoodie ever. It's all from Alfred Eden. I'll have them linked in the description. I'm saying this because they have a Black Friday sale that's like happening right now as we speak, I think, and I have a code for you guys. I'll put it here because I actually love their clothes so much. This hoodie you guys have probably seen me wear. It has little flowers. As you guys can see, I'm kind of on a navy blue. Big oversized hoodie and it has Alfred Eden embroidered. Leather jacket if you're looking for one, like Hailey Bieber vibe. This one for the winter time because it's like lined. Oh my gosh, it's just so cute. There's a Black Friday sale, guys. Check it out. Use my code. First, the book that I read most recently, which is Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews. This is probably the closest like romancy part of a book I've seen to the Foxhole Court. Randomly, the guy's name is Andrew also, and he is best friends with this boy named Thomas. Andrew also has a twin sister named Dove, and it's like the 3 of them were always the trio. But when they come back to school at this boarding school this one year, suddenly Dove is like nowhere to be found. She's like acting really distant. Thomas is acting suspicious as hell. Andrew already knows that Thomas has very abusive parents. Terrible, but we've been knowing that. This time when he's at school, turns out Andrew's parents got murdered. Thomas is the prime suspect. It's like slow burn horror vibes. Andrew is trying to figure out what's up with Dove, what's up with Thomas. Andrew is like, that boy's in love with Thomas. The writing of this book is very, like, it might be the most angsty writing I've ever read in my entire life. I think a line from like the back of the book or like the beginning of the book is like, I ripped out my heart and gave it to Thomas. Like, that's the vibe. I'm not gonna spoil the entire thing, but you do figure out what has been up with Thomas. Similar to the Fox Court, it's very suspension of disbelief. The things that these boys get up to, it's like, basically imagine if Bridge to Terabithia was like with 2 boys at a boarding school and it was like much darker, way more graphic, more messed up, and that is this book. Very Andrew and Neil coded in the fact that Thomas is very, very, very protective of Andrew. Says it in the book verbatim, like, I will protect you, like, it's my job to protect you. And very slow burn, angsty. I think I read this in a day actually. Next on the list is Summer Suns by Lee Mandello. It's the same vibe except the boys are a bit older now. I think they're like in college. Again, randomly, the boy's name is Andrew. Andrew is best friends with a boy named Eddie, and he was like all set to come visit Eddie in college. Mr. Eddie, again, he ends up dying and he ends up leaving Andrew with like his roommate and like his possessions, and Andrew of course comes, meets the roommate and like meets like the roommate's friends or whatever. He's trying to find out the truth about what happened to Eddie, and it kind of is a deep dive into the corrupt, twisted nature of like academia. Imagine if the Raven Boys was like older, darker, and like Noah was the main character. And again, it is like a slow burn horror. Like, this feels like an aged up version of Don't Let the Forest In. The romance is like nowhere on the back of the book at all. And I was like, perfect. So there is a very slow burn romance in here. Should I spoil with who it is? I don't know. If you really don't want any spoilers, then skip the next like 10 seconds. But personally, I needed the spoiler to be motivated to read the book, so I'm just gonna say it. Eddie's roommate, Riley, has like a cousin, I think they're cousins, named Sam. And he is like a Wreck-It Ralph. Like, he, Dennis the Menace, comes and just like instigates. And it's really slow moving. Like, nothing even happens to like the middle of the book. And then like it's baptism by fire. Gives the same like Andrew, Neil vibes. I think it's like a similar dynamic where like one of them is like a wild child, kind of unhinged, chaotic, meets like the mellow, calm, like kind of sad dad, you know, just like thrown into things. And it's like the combination of like the two of them together. It's like unlikely duo, but they do have chemistry. And then it's like slow burn romance because they're like repressed sexuality vibes is like the common theme here. I thought that it was like YA when I first went into it. It's not. It turns not YA very quickly, so be forewarned. Okay, and then the third book is Wolf Song by TJ Klune. At the beginning you're following this boy slash man, I guess, named Ox, and he is like, again, mellow, humble, living his life, doing his thing in like the middle of the woods, like this like random house in the woods. And then his nearest neighbor is like this other house in the woods. This big family, the Bennett family. There's like a lot of kids. Basically you just follow them over the course of like many years. I don't think this is a spoiler because literally look at the cover of the book and look at the title of the book. I mean, the Bennett family, like, there's something up. No one's seen them on the full moon. But it's not like paranormal. It's not like paranormal fantasy vibes. I do not like paranormal fantasy romance. That's not what this is. It's very low-key. It's like, this does not read like a fantasy at all. Very slow burn between Ox and one of the children from that family. And I guessed the wrong child. You don't really see it until they get older. Thank God. It's interesting to see the relationship just change over time from adolescence to like adult kind of love. It's like kind of slow moving. Like you kind of don't understand what's happening in the plot. It's not like a condensed plot at all. It's like really takes its time, but I like that because I like to really get to know the characters and I like love the parents. So those are the 3 books that I would recommend. The one that I do have to talk about, and I've talked about it to death, but I will just give it an honorable mention here, which is the Magnolia Parks and Daisy Hate series by Jessa Hastings. I truly do not need to be another voice on the interweb talking about this book series when everyone and their mother's cousin's goldfish has talked about this book, read this book, loves this book series. Technically 2 couples that you're following, which is Magnolia and BJ, and then Daisy Hates and Christian. However, those 2 couple pairings, they are quite possibly the most boring couples in the book to me. Could not care less about them. If you're anything like me, you will be obsessed with 2 pairings that are so doomed from the very start. You know that it's not gonna be them in the end. They're my favorite. They're my favorite, I fear. If Second Lead Syndrome was a book, it would be these. I don't want to spoil who the pairings are, but I will tell you what the tropes are. Like the boy is so completely in love, but he knows that he can't have her because he knows that she is in love with someone else. And so he just keeps quiet about it. Pretend that he doesn't care when actually he does care a lot. And especially one of them, he's infamous for like never having had a girlfriend. Even though he could have anyone that he wanted, it's like the nature of his work and the nature of his job. If he has anyone that he cares about, it will jeopardize the other people that he cares about, like his family. And so for those reasons, Shark, he can never get attached to anyone and he absolutely refuses to be attached to anyone. And so of course, like a masochist, I became so obsessed with him. You do kind of have to be in it for the long game, but you know what? The writing of this book series is like really good and entertaining in itself, but just know that I didn't really care that much until like the Daisy Hates books. They like alternate in the series. A Magnolia book, Daisy book, Magnolia book, Daisy book. Magnolia is like the it girl of London, like everyone wants her. Everyone wants her. That one. Then Daisy is a bit younger. They're like all in their like early 20s, by the way. Her family is like a crime family. Their parents were murdered when they were younger. I think their business is like art theft, and it's a whole friend group. You meet all the characters and all the other boys like have their own little side story. But as far as I'm concerned, everyone is NPC except for like the 2 boys that I like. And if you know me, it will be the easiest guessing game in the world of the boys that I like. It's disgustingly open and shut. Next is the This Woven Kingdom series by Tahira Mafi. I've also talked about this book series a lot, but this video is the only video that matters. This book series is kind of also one where you kind of need to be in it for the long game if you're in it to win it, but listen, we're in it to win it together. I think it's a trilogy. I know, I think it's a original trilogy and then she's gonna be writing more books because her readers bullied her into writing more books. I feel like that happens to so many authors. But like, what, get your coin. You're following this kingdom where this group of people, they were like conquered, enslaved. I think her name is Eliza. Is it Eliza or Eliza? She is like the last heir to this kingdom secretly, but she can't let anyone know her identity. She can't go around instigating things. And then on the streets one day, she off chance encounters Cameron, who's the prince to the kingdom that conquered her people. And they of course fall in love. And it's like a forbidden romance trope and it's very angsty. Tahira, she knows how to write her angst. That's kind of the story that you're following. However, do I care about that first couple? Maybe. But you know me, I love a boy who has to pretend that he does not care at all because it will put her in danger or like put other people in danger, even if that means he has to suffer and not let anyone know that he's suffering and not let anyone know how good of a person he actually is. He needs to pretend to be the bad guy and just let people believe that, especially the person that he loves, and he will just have to suffer in silence. Will Herondale coded. Yeah, that happens in this book. You don't even meet the guy though until like, I think you do meet him maybe at the end of the first book. He's like the villain of this book series. So it's really really giving like a shatter me type vibe. Still chasing the high from when I experienced that trope for the very first time when I was in middle school. My brain was so plastic then. It was so formative to me. That exact same trope. And the writing in this is actually, oh my god, like I was like in physical pain. Like I was like, oh my god, wow. And if you've read this book series, then you'll know what I mean. Mafi just loves like a poetic, like a poetry kind of writing, let me tell you. And I feel like what this trope does so well is like present a character. Everything that he does is like evil, bad, like there's no argument about it. But then in like little moments, like in between moments, you're like, oh, why did he do that? That was like really nice. And of course he's not gonna take credit for it. No one's gonna say anything about it, but it's like there's something deeper here. Something's cooking and I need to figure out what it is. Okay, next is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I'm gonna say this one really briefly too because A, everyone's read it, and B, everything that I said about the trope in the last book series I was talking about, it also applies here. It's like the same character phenotype. This one is like more YA. Okay, next is Truth Witch. This might be one of the ones that I repeated from my last book video, but like I said, you didn't see that. I feel like this was actually popular in like maybe like 2014, kind of two couples. One of them I feel like is supposed to be the main couple, but I like actually never care about the main couple of a series. I am a secondary couple for life. Secondary lead, secondary couple, that's my bread and butter. So you follow two best friends and I don't even remember their names. In this world there's like types of witches. I mean the context speaks for itself. A truth witch is someone who can tell a truth from a lie. They're the rarest. So one of the girls is a truth witch and then one of the girls is a thread witch. I think that's what it's called. But she can basically just see threads like of life, like binding things together. And those two girls are best friends, and they're the two POVs that we follow, and they each get a romance. And of course the girl with main character syndrome, the chosen one, the truth witch, she has like the more like explosive like romance, and it was so boring to me. I mean it was fine, it wasn't that slow burn, like there was more instant chemistry in it, and I'm like, okay, that's like fine. The second romance, I was like, wait a second. Don't even know that it's a romance until like low-key like book 2, I'm not gonna lie. There's like hints of it like at the end of like book 1. They barely even see each other in book 1, by the way. But I clocked it from the very second that I saw this man. I was like, you know what would be crazy? I'm about to say something crazy right now. And it came true. It came true. He's like literally the enemy. Well, you think that he's the enemy. He's not the real enemy. And obviously it's like enemies to lovers, but it's like the slow burn of it was like so great. I love that there's no instant chemistry, instant attraction. Oh, miss me with that. I hate instant chemistry. You know my favorite thing is when love interests are introduced and you have no idea that they are a love interest. That is like my favorite thing ever because you get to see the characters as their own characters before their characters and whole personalities is just contingent on like a romance. That to me is so boring, so uninteresting. This was something different. And he is like kind of misunderstood, quiet. I love quiet boys. It was just like my favorite dynamic, pretty much. Favorite dynamic, goes across multiple books, which is my favorite. So yeah, Truth Witch. Highly recommend. It's a good book series in general, but especially for the slow burn romance. And I especially want to advertise this because I feel like you wouldn't know just from the book that there's something like this in it. So be sure to check it out. It's so underrated. Okay, next I'm going to talk about these two books because they're like kind of connected, which are These Violent Delights and Foul Lady Fortune. They're both like Chloe Gong. It's called Secret Shanghai series. They're companion like book series, but you can read them on their own in my opinion. If you don't mind like minor spoilers, which I love spoilers. So These Violent Delights, there's multiple couples in this book. There's a main couple, obviously, and there's a secondary couple. And who am I gonna like more? Come on now. I kind of couldn't care less about the first couple. It's like supposed to be Romeo and Juliet retelling, so obviously they're like Romeo and Juliet. I kind of didn't care about them like pretty much at all. The secondary couple, it's like barely even a thing in the, and you wouldn't know from reading the back of the book. But again, I don't want to spoil. I kind of do want to spoil, so if you don't want a spoiler about who it is, then you come to the wrong video. Basically, this takes place in like historical Shanghai, I think in the 1920s, and you're following two rival gangs, and obviously forbidden romance with the Romeo and Juliet, a house divided. But basically in like one of like the friend groups in like one of the gangs, there's two boys. All of the boys are pretty much like this. They end up having like a really subtle best friends to lovers type of romance, and it's like they do not get a lot of screen time, not a lot of real estate at all, but like it was gold. Like I loved it. It's like friends to lovers done really well because they like clearly truly tell that they were platonic friends. Like that's what the foundation is, which I feel like that's always where a friends to lovers should start. Like no instant attraction or instant chemistry, and it takes place over the course of like the two books. It's a duology, and I really like that. Foul Lady Fortune, there is of course a main couple, but there's two secondary couples, and I would say all three of the romances I really liked personally. But if you are gonna choose romances that are more slow burn, I would say that the two secondary romances are more slow burn, and I equally liked all of them. The main couple is like kind of fake dating. It's like kind of enemies to lovers. And then one of them was like a little bit childhood friends, a little bit brothers and best friend vibes. And then the third one kind of doesn't really have a trope. It's just like they're cute. They're cute together. I think the last book series that I'll talk about, because I'm going on 30 minutes of footage now, it's the Fable series by Adrian Young, I think is the author. I've also talked about it. It's like one of my favorite book series actually. I think it's really, really underrated. There is like a primary couple in this book series and I like them. What I didn't know is that again, there is like a secondary romance. I feel like that's even a stretch to say. Like literally barely anything happens actually until maybe within the second book they like kind of meet for the first time. It's like really, you would not expect these characters. Truly, like they're mutuals, like there's none. They end up just by circumstance meeting each other. Here's the kicker, which is that you don't even get really their romance in that second book. Turns out there's a novella that I didn't know about and I read it like long after I read the original series, and it literally just follows those two characters. And low-key, I didn't even pick up on the romance in the second book, and it wasn't until I found this novella and I saw who the characters were and I was, this is just random out-of-pocket pairing. But then it's because they had chemistry in that second book, then now you get a whole novella which is just about them, and I ate up that novella obviously. So if you want something like that, I highly recommend it. I think it's like so fun to have novellas about side couples. Like, oh my god, every book should have that in my opinion. And can we please bring back having multiple couples in a book? Like multiple couples in a book that are not just like throwaway couples, like throwaway characters. Like please, please I'll do anything. Okay, anyway, that was my current list of my favorite slow burn romances. Hopefully you guys like get the vibe of like my favorite kind of books. If you know any books that fit the bill of what I'm talking about, oh my gosh, I will kiss your toes. Thank you guys for watching, sitting through this like horribly lit video, but I hope you got what you came for, and subscribe below if you want more book recommendations. I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye, love you.